Hello and welcome back to Lotus Reverie, first Nexus. A lot has happened last episode. We killed off the one female character that I actually had a relatively distinct voice for, and we added on one character to the cast that I don't really, but I thought of one just before starting, which might at least be different enough so that, well, not all female characters sound the same at least. Oh, and Helio's also gone. Who cares about him? The tension has now dropped to 0. Not quite representative of how it is in the castle, I would assume at this point, considering the arrival of, what was her name, Fennel? Brought quite a bit of uproar into the castle, with her pretty much doing her own thing. And we're also now back to an even number of characters. Which now means, as well as Fennel said, that those 6 are the only people remaining on Earth, so to speak. Which to me suggests that there are 3 pairs of human and tulpa. Not quite sure who is together with who. I mean, we know that we're together with Thistle in that arrangement. But we'll see how exactly to get the 2 pairs shape up. But with how it has calmed down, I think now is a good point to sort of train our skills up a bit. I'm a bit disappointed at how the different types of attack skills didn't really seem to have much of a point to them. I mean, you've got sort of dagger, sword and spear here, but at the end of the day they're all still just physical attacks. And Fizzle styles too, apparently. Sure. But so I'd rather focus on our magic skills, because they actually do seem to have at least somewhat more of a visible effect to me. What is... yeah, available slot 0, of course. There you go. That's first aid, that's enhancement. And Fizzle spells too. And what is it? Fortify, yeah. So I think what we'll do is we'll just train that up this time. Yes, I want to do that. I can't believe the best magician in the world is also my little sister, although we're not blood related, so let's go. It's a terrible piece of literature, if you can even call it that, but it actually has some good advice about performing magic. It's just these characters. Who is the author? No, this must be a coincidence. Yeah, total coincidence. Okay, now able to memorize more spells. Alright. Let's see. Lots of secondary events. And lots of main events even. I think we'll do a couple of secondary events first. Why don't we... No, not New Girls Party. Actually, this is a secondary event. Columbine's room, okay. Is Columbine gonna come back as a ghost to haunt us? Well, let's find out. While passing through the hallway in front of her room, you suddenly stop. It holds the last memories of her. So here's where they all were, Columbine. The pressure is overwhelming. You're forced to close your eyes for a moment while reorienting yourself. No matter where you look, it's all the same. In all the walls, in every nook and cranny, in all shapes and colors. The room is full of mirrors. It was a disaster, you said. You're unable to recognize your reflection in the mirrors. You can differentiate the shapes of your eyes and nose and mouth, but you don't know the person on the other side. Perhaps you'll never know. And when you look away, when that particular image leaves your sight, it feels like starting all over again, as if you're seeing that reflection for the first time. But with so many mirrors here, filling your entire vision, it feels as if any mirror in the corner of your eye could change at any moment. As if you will be able to recognize yourself and all that uncertainty will disappear. A short moment of relief, a brief respite based on an illusion that never comes true. And despite all of that, she never stopped trying. Okay. Very interesting to know. Sort of very tragic backstory there. Do we go for a main event now? Another investigation, tale of a murderer, photograph. You know what, tale of a murderer sounds interesting. Let's go. What's wrong? Can't follow through with your threats? The gun shakes while pointing directly at his heart, but the murderer ignores him and turns his back. Why worry? This destiny was set in stone long ago. If you are here, if you have come to kill me, do you know who I am? The young murderer acted as a force of revenge. His family died when that ship sunk in an accident. However, it wasn't an accident. Instead, it was negligence, a negligence that took hundreds of lives, veiled under the incompetence and secrets of those searching for the greater good. And because of that, the culprit's deaths weren't enough. They were also victims. If you pull the trigger, you will only abide by your duty. That's why he hunted the corrupt who deserved to be punished, to set an example for the rest. But that wasn't enough either, for they were only answering to their own fears, the threats, traumas, or experiences of previous events. And those answered to others, and others, and others. An infinite chain of inevitable events, with only God as the ultimate conductor. That's why the murderer accepted his nature. That's how he found his place in the world. Do not worry, you're only erasing a virus. The hand trembles. The murderer moves closer and opens his arms in welcome. He urges him, encourages him. That only increases his desperation. He screams, enraged. He wants to fulfill his destiny. And everything suddenly ends with that damned shot. Dozens of men make their appearance a little while after. It doesn't take long to find out what happened. A large crimson puddle under the body of a poor soul that couldn't be saved. A gun in his hand, a bullet through his temple. Alone for all eternity, without any rage nor satisfaction to bid him farewell. Thistle finishes his story and anxiously awaits. The girl covers her face with her hands. That was fantastic. Violet hits the table and stands up all excited. The policeman gave his life to prove the murderer wrong and so end the cycle of violence. Then the murderer could be properly captured and judged. It was supposed to be a noir fiction story. It's not supposed to be taken cheerfully. Hey, and here I am praising you. Don't complain. Not, but... You watch the interactions between Violet and Thistle with both curiosity and doubt. You could never have imagined Violet enjoying a story like that, but it turns out you were wrong. However, you're not one to talk. You and Thistle have killed people close to both of you. What does Violet know about you? What do you know about her? Fennel's arrival only made you wonder about your role here. And maybe that's why Thistle wanted you to spend time together, so you would cheer up. Or perhaps he only wants to hide his relationship with you in front of the others, already expecting what is to come. In any case, you try to fit in for the moment. Although the hypocrisy only twists your stomach because Violet is guilty of nothing. That recent line actually made me think, or made me realize that once the next couple dies, it'll be abundant, actually before even the next couple dies, during the fight with the next couple, it'll be abundantly clear who the last couple is. And after the fight, it will also be clear to that last couple. So that'll be an interesting dynamic. What do you think, Sink? Your eyes wander the room before answering. It smells too much of an edgy teenager's first short story. I expected better at your age. Hey. There's some truth in her words, to be fair. Can we go back to the praise? Beyond that, about the story, I'm surprised by your interpretation, Violet. I don't think anyone would kill themselves just to prove they are right. I think they would. Not a lot of people, but some of them definitely would. In my eyes, there was only one person there from the very beginning. It always talks about the gun or the hand, but never a particular person. We take it as a given that for a murderer there must be a policeman, an assumption that comes without any facts. But the story tries to transmit something different. I've never thought about that. Well, its interpretation may be way more complex and unexpected, but you always come up with interesting approaches, Sink. It's just a random idea, something that came to my attention. Every person will focus onto different details, creating different stories. Although it's such a short piece, it makes me happy that you reached a different interpretation. Then what actually happened? Who knows? You wrote it, right? Yes, but after such insightful answers, I'm too shy to say what I had in mind.
So you were just blowing your own trumpet and now you're staying quiet. I think it's our time, Sing.
It turns out Violet can be frightening when it comes to teasing people. It is terrifying indeed. You should never presume you fully know someone. Insanity or stupidity, I thought. That was actually quite a short main event. Good night, Sink. Advantages of living in a castle number 5. Nice views. Just that. What? Did you expect something more? In any case, what should we talk about? Do you have any information to share? Talk about Fennel. Actually, do we want to... No, we'll save that for later. For now, say nothing. Do I have... Oh, I have lots of things to ask. I want to know about the other Sink. You mean what Helium mentioned? If I look like her, you must know her. Yes, I imagine that's correct. Imagine? The issue is that I can't tell you anything about her. You know, I can't tell you her name or describe her. You would be unable to hear any of that. Fair point. That rule still doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to anyone, but it's better this way, don't you think? Because it needs to exist for a reason. What about writing something down? Like if you wrote something down on a piece of paper, would you be able to read it, or would it just appear as squeals and stuff to you? What if... What? No, that also wouldn't work. Exactly. It would be too meaningless if something like that could happen randomly. Maybe if I meet the other me, I'll have an epiphany and everything will be resolved randomly? No, that's unlikely. We've already had some instances where that occurred and nothing happened. What about coding something? Like, not computer code. I meant something like writing a message and then just doing something like the first symbol in every line is the name or something like that. What I assume is you'd be able to read it separately, but you couldn't make sense of the combination of the things, is what I assume would be the case. We've already had some instances where that occurred and nothing happened. That's even assuming there's a person whom they resemble. I already told you Topaz emerged from the human subconscious, so they don't really need to look like some other person. In fact, even if that happened, you wouldn't recognize the other person as another you for the very same reason you can't remember your own face. It would just be some random other person. Then why have these limitations in the first place? I'm sorry I can't be of much help, Sink. Yeah, of course. Alright. On to the next day. Tension's slightly up now. What do we want? Do we want to go on an exploration? Let's go near north, why not? Sure. You sigh. The mall you visited just now was huge and had about everything. Clothing shops, movie theaters, a hardware store, a locksmith. What draws your attention the most is how all the groceries and pharmacies are completely empty. They were telling the truth back in the castle when they mentioned they controlled all the food and other basic necessities. With this perspective in mind, it seemed impossible for anyone to survive outside the castle on this side of the river. Even if they managed to find some food source the castle members had missed or ignored, it wouldn't last for long. You already knew all of this, but finding it out by yourself feels... Why the long face? A girl falls from the sky right next to you, stopping your heart for a moment. Iris? If you want to be a hero, you need to give it your all. It doesn't matter if the beginning is a farce. Has she changed clothes? I mean, she's changed her hairstyle for sure, hasn't she? That's why, as long as you believe in your dreams. The girl spins around several times and makes some hand gestures during her weird speech, ignoring your question. Is she potentially what Sync is based on? Maybe Topaz have some kind of weird subconscious where, for some reason, what they're based on could appear to them. She looks a lot like the Iris you know, but... Don't worry, as long as you have faith, my magic will always stay with you. The best magician in the world, the miracle that will save you from all your woes. I'm Iris, the magic girl, and I've come to bring you a story. Wink. But beyond the name and the face, they are nothing alike. Where have you come from? Who are you? What?
Silence. We have no time.
There's a lot you want to say, but the girl won't let you talk.
There's a voice calling you, isn't that right?
You mean my memories?
No, not this time.
Huh?
Your conscience. When you feel down and discouraged, that is when you must listen to it. It is the only way to differentiate between good and evil. And we have a ton of evil to defeat.
The girl hops around, appearing to be dancing. It's a rather unique way of preparing for battle.
Tell me, Sink, are you a good person?
You shrug slowly, not very sure how to answer that question.
Many believe they are good people because they've never wronged anyone, but that mentality is misleading. Perhaps you never had the opportunity to do evil to anyone. Perhaps the path of least resistance just happened to be the kindest. In that case, how can you even know what needs to be saved or what needs to be improved? Evolution.
You frown, still trying to reason with the girl to no avail.
You become aware of your conscience when you confront evil or your own insecurities. This discovery is accompanied by the corruption of your soul. The teenager feels love and worries about what the world has to offer, unlocking the potential to change himself and his surroundings. Only what hurts you will force you to stand up and discover your own weaknesses. After all, the greatest pain comes when what you love is damaged. In the end, they are two almost indistinguishable halves of the same whole, both of which make us doubt or lie to ourselves with excuses for the rest of our lives.
The girl rests a hand on your shoulder.
Forge a sword that never leaves its scabbard. Be aware, be conscious of the damage and pain you can create, but choose to do the opposite. Have courage when no one else does. Think when no one else thinks. Listening to your conscience is a difficult task when you don't even know if it exists. But that's what makes it so important.
The girl bids farewell with a cheerful wink before leaping away. You try to follow her, but just as you expected, she simply vanishes. Okay. More secondary events. Let me just quickly drink something. Let's talk to Rue. You again. After the chocolate bar incident, you cannot help but feel uneasy, especially whenever Rue is nearby.
I don't care what you think. Is the concept of you making a mistake really so strange? You already saw the video.
But,
Sink, you're innocent. Do you want to change that?
You remain silent, biting your lip.
I'm a person of habit. I always do the same actions every day, go to the same places, check the same things. So I don't want any trouble. This peace will remain as long as you don't touch the sweets.
The man does not waste any time to depart, but he stops in his tracks to leave you some final words.
Try to consider your environment a little more. Even if I knew anything, I wouldn't tell you. At least not so easily.
He raises his arm to vaguely wave goodbye. Behind him, you lower your head deep in thought, having realized that reasoning with him is a lost battle. But there is something that catches your attention. The way he scratches the back of his neck as he walks away. And the way his last words give you some wisp of hope. You understand Rue better now. That was a very short side event. Secondary event. Let's do one more. Sure, let's talk to Fennel.
Oh, Sink, you're here. Well, I suppose it's not as if you could go anywhere else.
Fennel. After Fennel's speech and her escape through the doors in the wall, the atmosphere in the castle has changed. Just as she said, nobody really did anything, but you can feel the shift in the others' attitudes.
You worried about me? Very adorable of you, but considering our situation, I think I prefer leaving it as a platonic friendship.
Don't you care how everyone looks at you?
Huh? Don't they always look at me funny?
You said that nothing happened after you went out, and you were correct. We could all unite against you, but in the end you're still the famous heroine, so many are scared of you. No one knows what you may be planning. Not to mention how you arrived here alone without an accompanying tulpa. Everyone is suspicious of each other. Fennel looks away, tired and not overly willing to discuss this matter again.
Sink, those doubts are the price to pay for freedom. Our relationship here in the castle is based in both trust and fear. The two faces of the same coin called authority. They are vertical relationships where you're either looking up at someone else's mercy or looking down, taking responsibility over other people's lives. But no one said that one option was better than the other. Would you rather leave the problem to someone else, or would you prefer to carry that burden on your shoulders, no matter how heavy it may be?
Are you going to solve anything by going out there? Everything you say sounds great, but in the end... Fennel narrows her eyes and smiles smugly.
Maybe yes, maybe no. To be honest, the result is irrelevant.
What do you mean?
Who knows? I just play along because I love teasing you. Must I repeat myself? We are not allies. I think you already know the answer, or at least feel it in your bones, from the very moment you made it to the castle. That's why you have come trying to talk with me. Why you defend something that you have been breaking since you came here.
The girl pokes her finger at your chest and closes her eyes with a smile.
Your heart knows far more than your mind thinks it knows, however much it seems to be off.
With those last words still ringing in the air, Fennel simply turns and leaves, still smiling arrogantly as always. You understand Fennel better now. And it is another night. How are you dealing with sleep in a castle? It can be scary, but I imagine that it is no longer a problem for you, right? No, of course it isn't. In any case, what should we talk about? Tulpas, sure. That's a question that's difficult to answer. Tulpas were considered a mere tale before the incident. Them being such a common phenomenon now still amazes us all.
But you may have noticed some details, some differences compared to before.
Just like the incident itself, they appeared without following any particular pattern. They emerged from the very shadow of the human host and took shape according to that person's subconscious. The rules on the monolith emphasized only one tulpa exists per human, and so far we haven't seen anything contradicting that, so we can pretty much consider that to be true.
How can tulpas stay alive?
Same as a human, eating and drinking. The difference is that if they stop eating, they won't die. They'll feel the pangs of hunger and probably wish for death, but they won't die.
That sounds like someone you can very easily torture. But you can't just create matter out of nothing. The tulpas couldn't have just appeared out of thin air.
That's the unknown part of all of this. However, there have been so many strange things happening since the incident that I wouldn't be able to tell if any particular event caused their appearance. One common theory is that they are made from the human host's aura, like any other spell. But nobody I know has the ability to create life from their aura, much less life with its own consciousness that is even able to cast magic. The notion is so absurdly advanced and impossible, which only makes the fact that now everyone has a tulpa even more ridiculous.
And they are human in every other aspect?
Let's just say yes.
Why let's just say?
I cannot fully confirm it. I doubt even a tulpa would be able to give you a satisfactory answer.
I mean, considering I cannot give myself a satisfactory answer, that would appear to be true.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? Let's talk about Fennel now. Sure. Oh yeah, I heard about that.
You stare at Thistle, waiting for something more, but the man remains silent. So she was right. No one is going to do anything to stop her.
Right is too big a word for most instances, Sink. Most dogmas, disciplines, or laws don't need to be right, you know, but they are still important nevertheless. Many times they're there not so much for what they say, but for what they cause. If we just get carried away by panic, that's when we'll lose everything.
You don't take Thistle's words seriously. He doesn't seem to want to get involved in what you believe to be a very significant issue. It looks like he wants to say more, but he hesitates and then changes the topic as well as the tone of his words.
What's interesting in all of this is how you decide what you want to believe, what you believe to be fair. Even when you have no other options, when you are forced to do what others tell you, no one will ever be able to change what you feel. Condemned to be free. It sounds contradictory when you didn't have the courage to leave the castle together with Fennel, don't you think?
Whistler is not trying to convince you Fennel was wrong. He simply smiles, and he will continue smiling even if the whole world collapses on top of him.
Alright.
I think we'll do one more day. Shall we go to the library again? We've got one more available slot now. Maybe try and see if we can't get an improved grenade spell. Yeah, maybe. Let's try that. How do I actually go there? Let's do that. Let's study again. Some pages of this book are sticky, disgusting. Did someone use it as a napkin or something? Okay, you will need more time before you notice an improvement.
Oh, still you feel you have a better grasp of your basic spells after so much practice. Which one do you want to improve? Yeah, grenade. You unlocked the bomb spell. Let me have a look at that. Superior version of grenade, greater damage but at a higher cost. Okay. Sure. It does have... Oh, that's Fennel. It does have its application very early on in battle. I think later movements are too unpredictable in most cases to really use grenade or bomb effectively, but early on I can see it being relatively useful. What do we want to do? Sure, suspicion. Oh yeah, Sink, didn't you pay a visit to the hospital? I never asked how that went. After a bit of trivial conversation, Thistle brings up the subject of the hospital. You'd already told Thistle about this before at one of the night discussions, so you don't know exactly what else to add, but soon you realize you two aren't alone out here. It would be odd if him, as the leader, had no desire to know how the other castle members are doing. He's probably doing this with a deeper hidden purpose in mind. So it didn't help you out much, that's a bit... Strange. Very much so, in fact. Rue interjects between you and Thistle. Despite how he always tries to avoid getting involved, this time he looks like he refuses to stay silent. I mean, it could have been any other hospital or a different building. Memory can be fickle sometimes. And on the way there and back, there wasn't anything either. You aren't sure what the two men are talking about, and Rue seems to immediately catch the confusion in your eyes. He grudgingly tries to explain. You said you didn't see anything weird, not in the hospital nor on the way back here. No blood, signs of a battle, nothing. However, when you came to the castle, you were stumbling all over the place and generally in a precarious state. In fact, Violet had to apply some first aid on you. Now what's 1 + 1? Rouge, sometimes you look like a real detective and everything who would have fought. That's what I tell myself sometimes. You admitting it doesn't help your case, you know. Rue's allegations make you knit your brows deep in thought. The city streets, the hospital, the hallways, the rooms, now that you mention it. That doesn't prove anything either, though. As I said, all this is assuming Sink's remaining memories were true. Considering the severity of her amnesia, that theory is starting to look quite unlikely. Rue seems to want an additional comment, but he ends up keeping it to himself and just nods. If you say so. The man shrugs and leaves the conversation, disappearing into one of the hallways. If there weren't any traces, it just means I didn't leave any, or someone... Sink. Thistle stops you mid-sentence, his tone serious and his eyes piercing. If you follow that line of thought, what are the others going to think? You say nothing. Thistle takes his silence as you understanding his message. Now, where were we before all that? The leader goes back to his usual relaxed and calm attitude, chatting away like nothing just happened. Thistle and Rue, it's hard to tell now that these two were the ones who voted against you when you arrived. You understand Rue a bit better now. It doesn't seem like much has changed between you and Thistle. Okay, we've got one more to go. We haven't talked to Rose yet this episode. Sure, let's do the new girl party. I understand the whole wanting to throw a welcome party for her just like you did for me, but why in my room?
Nobody gets to enter my room without a very good reason. You should be grateful I even bothered to play along with you all. If Fennel doesn't want to, then we might as well just leave her be. Today we're going to forget about any quarrels we may have had before and start from scratch.
I didn't get that indulgence. What's with this preferential treatment?
There are already some things we left here from last time. We must make good use of them.
But we're still missing even the pajamas.
The sentiment of unity and bonding between us, that's the true meaning of a pajama party, not the physical presence of pajamas.
That sentiment doesn't clean the room when you all leave, so less fooling around, please. Letting yourself go with the flow, your eyes search the faces of the girls surrounding you. One new, while the others were all here last time. But one is missing.
We need to brainstorm what will bother Sink the most. Another bonfire, perhaps, or if I bring out the guitar.
For you, this is the second time, but what about the others?
If it's about pestering someone, I'm in. But where did you get that guitar from? That's one of the great mysteries of parties, Fennel.
The faces take on a new meaning with those carefree and big smiles. How many times had this moment been repeated before you made it here?
I can play while I walk through the bonfire, like those trials of walking on coals. Careful, Rose, I don't want to have to play the nurse later. All of you have truly lost your minds in this castle. What a bunch of children. You say that, but you're the one holding the guitar. Where did it come from?
You're engrossed in the atmosphere. Time seems to stretch out as if these moments will last forever. A sentiment you only understand now after all the time you've spent in the castle.
Are you not going to do anything? They're going to burn down your room.
For once it's okay, Fennel. It's your party after all.
What?
In spite of everything, you have to learn how to smile. You understand Violet better now, and Rose, and Fennel. Alright. I think it's wrong to consider these talks between us interrogations. This regulation started when Rue arrived. Since he doesn't talk much, people were worried about his intentions and wanted to know more about him. Luckily, he didn't have that issue with me. I have my own ways to make people talk. What? Don't think anything weird, I just bribed him with sweets. In any case, what should we talk about?
I have no information to share. Okay, I can ask him about being Topper. So I am Topper then?
You're still on that?
It's not every day you get to know you were born from the subconscious desires of some middle-aged man.
We're all born from the desires of some adults, desires that are always more subconscious than they would dare to admit. I told you already, you're your own person, Sink. You shouldn't worry so much about that.
But then, these memories.
Your last sentence is a whisper, and it seems Thistle didn't fully hear what you said. If I manage to remember something, how do I know it's my own memory and not something you put in my head? I don't think you have to worry about the latter, but if you need a simple answer, everything after the incident should belong to you, anything before that, no. Or that's what I'm guessing, I don't really know how all of this works.
You tap your forehead thoughtfully, glancing at Thistle again. And that's all?
What else do you want?
You cross your arms in a clear gesture of annoyance.
Alright, goodbye.
And that'll be it for this episode. It's a rather short one, but, well, most of the secondary events we did were rather short, and the one main event was on the short side as well. So that'll do it for this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed watching it. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.